All right, so now it's time for our video about how cells reproduce themselves, which is a cell's second job. So we're going to be talking about cell division, which we call mitosis. So the first part of mitosis is actually the name we have for the rest of the cell cycle besides mitosis. And that's what we call interphase. Interphase is the term we use for G1, G2, when what we're focused on is mitosis. And the reason for that is because we actually could see mitosis first. It's very easy to see cell division under a light microscope. And it wasn't until later that we could see what was going on during interphase, and we had a clue about what the cells were doing when they weren't dividing. So interphase is actually the term we developed first, and it wasn't until we figured out later what the cell was doing that we got the rest of the cell cycle figured out. The interphase is sometimes referred to as the resting phase. And considering that it contains G1, G2, do you really think that name is accurate? But let's talk a little bit about mitosis. The first phase of mitosis is prophase. Prophase is where we see the chromosomes condense. That's these X-shaped things here. The nuclear membrane disappears, and centrioles start forming spindle fibers. So, what is a chromosome? A chromosome is basically DNA that's been wrapped around DNA that's been wrapped around proteins that's been then spiraled and coiled up until it forms this X-shaped structure that we're familiar with. So here we have a DNA double helix, and here we have a protein called histones. And we've taken that double helix and we've wrapped it around these histones. And then here you can see we've wrapped it into a spiral, and then we've taken that spiral and coiled that up, and that's how we get a chromosome. A chromosome can be divided into two sides. Those sides are called chromatids. So there are two chromatids here. Then we also have names for these ends, these like leg-looking things here. Those are called telomeres. Then the centromere here is where the two chromatids are attached to each other or linked. Okay, so moving right along with mitosis, we have metaphase. Metaphase is where the chromosomes line up in the middle. The spindle fibers are going to attach to them, and that's what happens in metaphase. The chromosomes line up along what we call the metaphase plate, which is what the middle of the cell is called here. Then we have anaphase, where the spindle fibers pull apart the sister chromatids to opposite sides of the cell. And then we have telophase, where the new nuclear membrane is going to form, and the chromosomes are going to start to uncoil. You can also see that the cell starts to pull apart in this phase. Which brings us to our final phase, which is where we have cytokinesis. Cytokinesis is the division of the cytoplasm and the full division of the cells into two separate cells. So you can see here our cells are now fully divided. We have our purple nucleus here with our strands of DNA that have uncoiled. And in animal cells, the cell membrane actually pinches off in order for these to separate. But in plant cells, they form what we call a cell plate, which forms between the two cells and is basically a segment of cell wall that grows between the two cells. And then this picture is just talking about the same thing with cytokinesis, but it gives you some actual photographs of a cell going through that cytokinesis cleavage, where you can see the cell membrane is starting to pinch off, and you can see this cell plate starting to form. Okay, that brings us to the end of our overview of the phases of mitosis. We have a couple of other topics related to this that we're going to discuss, but this is kind of your overview for the phases of mitosis.